Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. This time, we are going to be discussing something that we've titled Antebellum Adventures, because we're in Showdown at High June, so we have like our Western-esque type of setting going on for us, and that's why we have picked that. We're going to be talking mainly about the period of both Antebellum and throwing in some of the Civil War era type of stuff, if you would do that too. But before we get into that, we need to do introductions and announcements in case there's some of you that are new. So, I'm going to start, and then these two, let me see. We're going to have Dan go first on these first two chats, because he's going to be ditching us.
Calling me out.
Yeah. So,
that's fair.
No mercy.
Punishment fits the crime. I accept.
All right. But I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads and the Gentle Voice TV Ministries. If you want to check either of those out, they are on YouTube and on Rumble. We're manually mirroring over because the mirroring process is not particularly amazing between Rumble and YouTube, so we're mirroring to both of those. Lord willing, that goes all smoothly. If you like the hobby stuff, you're in the right place. If you want some more Christian-focused content, it's not as consistent as I want it to be yet, but that has a little bit to do with some things in real life as well as things just working around. So, nothing terrible, just we're getting there. So you can check that out too. That's the Gentle Voice TV on both Rumble and on YouTube. Had to use a TV part because apparently the Gentle Voice @ tag was already taken. So, oh well.
Unbelievable.
I think that's everything from me right now. I do want to mention that this chat is going to be fun, but also look forward to next chat in Sci-Fi July, because we will be having a guest we haven't had on before. So, there you go.
That's right.
That's everything from me. All right, Dan.
Hi, everybody. Dan from Avenue Studios. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And you can also catch us streaming most Saturday evenings around 9 p.m. Eastern, especially on Druid's Table, where we talk news and reviews. Jacob, my partner in crime, and his lovely bride are very excited because our next chat, which it'll already be up. So you can check out the VOD, will be about Howl of the Wild from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So they're very excited to talk about that. And we hit some other news stuff there. And then hopefully sometime later this year, we're going to have a couple new shows coming out that are going to be pretty cool. So I hope to see you there. And that is me.
Well, I'm looking forward to the new shows.
I know.
I'm looking forward to
pre-production delay.
I'm looking forward to seeing the end of the Bomb Squad campaign.
That's true. It'll be wrapping up in June.
Oh, so. June, this month that this is releasing. Yes. So,
yep.
Oh. Okay. Get ready
good.
For, there's this, I don't think it's Schadenfreude. That's pleasure at someone else's pain. There's this other word that is for, like when you finish a good book, the feeling when you finish a good book, or you finish a video game and you're like, man, that was good. Oh, and you get sad, but you're happy you finished. It'll be that type of feeling. Bittersweet.
Bittersweet. Skrat doesn't even know what he walked into, too. That was their party name. Bittersweet.
Their first party name.
I'm on it.
The first. Nailed it. It's good. And the last episode, too, Chris and I bought gifts for all the players that are campaign inside jokes and stuff. And it just, because of what happens in the final battle, chef's gifts on those gifts. In all humility, I'm very happy with them.
There you go.
So I'm looking forward to it. And we will have, for those who care, a baby picture of all the babies born during our 5-year campaign. I'm working on getting that set up.
Spoiler alert, it's a lot.
It's a lot. We're in the double digits. So.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that's too much of me. Sorry.
You're up, Skrat.
Yeah. I was just sitting here. I was trying to think the first campaign I had. I think we had a session land on Valentine's Day or something, and I didn't even bother canceling it because I knew everybody was a loser and didn't have anything to do.
That's so good.
Anyway, I am Skrat from A Squirrel Plays. I'm over on YouTube, and I like to make videos pretending that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to things like writing and storytelling. I also like to get into TTRPGs as well, because there's a lot of crossover to an extent between writing and storytelling and ye old TTRPGs. I am a bit newer. I guess I should probably stop saying that. I'm not that new anymore when it comes to TTRPGs, but compared to the writing, I'm a lot newer on that front. But
one of us.
One of us. Yes, the community has been great. They've really just dragged me in. You guys, Brave Alice Games, and everybody watching and commenting. Been pretty great. We're making ourselves a nice little squirrel community. Having a lot of fun. And yeah, just trying to share ideas, dive into things, figure out how you can take some writing concepts and enhance some of your TTRPG stuff. Not get too carried away with it, but happy medium. What I do.
Balance in all things.
Yeah.
You got to check out Skrat's video on NPCs, because he hits not only 80s Transformers, but also Star Wars, and I loved every minute of it.
I'm going to make an entire video about that Transformers movie.
I love it.
Good.
So says the 80s kid.
Yeah.
So good.
All right, then. Well, I guess that means introductions are done. So we're going to do our normal thing with Levi's Spotlight. And this time we decided to, we were searching through our subscriptions, and we're like, we need to shout out somebody, it's about ours and stuff like that. And we kept poking around and trying to find somebody who's still consistent. Hack the Dungeon, still consistent. And I'm surprised, I've heard him mentioned a few times by other people, I'm surprised he only has 1.25k. So let's try to get him up to 2,000 or something like that. He's making videos and has been for a good while. Last and most recent one, the most recent one is Sentient Items, and it's tagged for D&D. That's just for the algorithm, I'm pretty sure. If I remember from watching some of his others, it's general. It's more of a general tips than it is specifically D&D only. So you can check that out with Hack the Dungeon on YouTube. So there you go. That's what I do. Okay. We got our shout out done quick and all that stuff. So now I'm going to start the timer as we grab our preferred beverages and invite you to join us around the hearth while we discuss Antebellum Adventures. Skål.
Skål.
Cowboy critter right there.
Oh my word, that's adorable. It's giving me Five Goes West vibes.
Yes.
That's what I thought too when I saw it.
Right?
That's such a good movie.
I love it too.
I need to watch that one again. I haven't watched it since I was a little kid when it was new.
Okay.
Rolling.
Yep.
Quick derailment just for
It's
that.
the West.
That's right.
Just saying.
It's a really well-paced movie, and it's one of the few sequels that truly does meet up to the expectation for the sequel of a good movie. So,
Yeah,
don't watch the others. It's just 1 and 2.
No.
None of the others exist.
Yep. I honestly, as a kid, I liked Five Goes West more. It was a little bit.
Mhm.
I didn't even
It's a
know it
little
was
brighter.
sequel.
Oh, really? You haven't seen
Yeah.
Five Goes?
You haven't seen American Tail?
American Tail? Thank you. That's it.
Oh.
The what's the song the sister and brother are singing to each other?
Somewhere out there.
Okay, I recognize that.
Pale moonlight.
I don't know if we're
recognize
together
the
by
cover
Pink.
here, but I don't know if we ever had that one.
It's older one.
Yeah, old. You're from the 80s.
I mean, in fairness, I wasn't really conscious in the 80s. I was just born.
But fair enough. But it is, both of those, you can check those out. That's derailing a little bit, but it does build into the idea of good storytelling, so you can check those out. And it actually doesn't fit our time period, but
it is a little later, isn't it?
It's just a little later. We're getting, American Tale takes place allegorically to the First World War, I think.
Yeah.
So, happens in that time period. But, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the antebellum period in America. We're focusing on America, but you could do this in an international way. It does give a different feel, though, than the normal Western if you do, but that's your decision. Antebellum adventures would take place 1812 is the official start in most people's reckonings for the antebellum period, which means antebellum, before chaos, before the war. So you got antebellum period from 1812 to 1861, with the American Civil War kicking off at 1862 to 1865 is kind of the perceived end. So that's where we're dealing with. Solidly in the 1800, this. And in the mid to late, if you go right in the middle of the antebellum period, it covers a lot more historically than some of the other historical periods we've gone over before. Because, like, the world wars are a very tight space of time. They're like 40 years-ish, right there for the heat of them.
Right. Combined, too, right? Both
Yeah.
wars.
So this offers you a larger period of time to play around with if you want to. You can play around with different things that are going on, just for some key points and considerations. Like, and we're focusing on world building this chat, and then character-specific things next chat. So world building for this chat, this is the time where you can have a whole bunch of fun mixing in new technologies. And especially steampunk would be very appropriate with the locomotive and the expansion west, especially the expansion west just after the Civil War. You could push it past that. But steam power was starting up. You also had, if I remember correctly, early natural gas, early electricity, and I don't know if they had gotten actual crude yet. I'd have to look that up real quick. But that is a great period for the different technologies that are coming about. So those are some of my considerations for the world building portion. So you guys can feel free to jump in now.
Well, I was going to throw out, especially with the steampunk, like in the north, New York City and stuff like that, you're having a lot of explosion of technology during that period. So you could really lean into the steampunk there versus the west. There's a lot of like northwest and south all have their own kind of things going on. Agricultural in the south, industrial in the north, and then westward expansion. So there's like 3 distinct areas you can play with that a lot is happening, but it's very different in each place, which eventually leads to the conflict. Conflict.
I had probably wasn't but a month ago at this point or so, little one shot I ran. I tried to do the Western thing, and so I wanted to do the thing where you mixed cowboys, samurais, and then the steampunk people, and then the Native Americans were very magical based.
Oh yeah, classic.
It was as I was getting into it, I was like, man, this is a really cool setting. It's a shame this is just a one shot, but
Well,
that's awesome.
What's funny is it's a really cool setting that actually existed, because I mean,
yeah,
that kind of stuff happened.
Right. I mean, it's
maybe
when
not
did
the
the
steampunk
railroad-
stuff, but
right. When did was the railroad stuff? When did the railroad push? That's post Civil War, isn't it? More.
Well, the Western push for it was you
Okay,
had that
fair.
whole Manifest Destiny stuff start up just after the Civil War, kind of as a unifying call to get people to move west and stuff. Of course, Manifest Destiny, now that may have actually been something that came up as a thought in the Antebellum period.
I was going to say, didn't that follow like the Monroe Doctrine right at the end there? Yep. Which is... See, I told the guys I got inspired by some other stuff while I was picking back up on my history, but I don't want to derail it too quickly, so...
Apparently, Manifest Destiny is a phrase coined in 1845, so it's well within our stuff.
Oh, okay. That's actually earlier than I thought. It was 1860s at least. Cool.
I will throw out there, too, real quick, when we're talking about world building. Old Grognard says, we had chatted him out not too long ago, but he just dropped a video about a month. Well, I guess when this comes out, it'll probably be about 2 months old. He was talking about rules for old firearms and stuff, but he went off. A good chunk of the video was talking about how those old firearms worked, and like how you could work that into your rules. So like old flintlock things and muzzle loaders and all that. Not sure. I know some of them would fall into this time period. I don't know about all of them, but that would be an interesting watch.
Yeah, that's a really good point with this generally, because the explosion of both in the South with agricultural creations and then the North more industrial, there's a lot of people creating new technology, which was always going to go wrong in the beginning. So that's a really good thing you can play with here. Trying out new stuff. I love that.
Yeah. If you are familiar with our channel, we mentioned it last time when we did our Western chat. Wild Wild West. Both the old version and the Will Smith version. Yes. Both of them have a lot of kind of kooky, odd, different inventions by Loveless. And, who's the main bad guy. And, they work out well. Of course, there's good guy inventors, too, but...
Such a good bad guy name.
Loveless, yeah.
Alright, I just did a quick Google. Apparently, the blunderbuss fits into this time period, so...
The first shotgun?
Blunderbuss.
Also very aptly named.
Well... What's cool is that just like we have today, we have records of all this old technology and people still mess around with it some. You have people actually using flintlocks while revolving pistols are coming into use. You have people actually still using blunderbusses as Gatling guns are starting to be... I mean, Gatling guns were even before the blunderbuss in that sense. So... you have a lot of interesting things happening in technology as far as guns and things, and a far more experimentation in firearms than we see today. We have kind of a very set, we've refined the form of the gun pretty well to where it's set into its own thing. So if you've got a little pistol like I do, it doesn't matter if it's a 6-gun or if it's a magazine, it's got a triggering mechanism that is almost... they're built off same principles. So, with the hammer and such.
Yeah, that's a good point for... It's probably more for the later chat, but tinkering could be a very fun character build in here, because they're going to encounter different engineering styles of weapons and things like that, and things going terribly wrong.
Another point is that with the world building, you can do a lot of fun what-if fictions in this era. With so much change happening, you can do a lot of fun what-ifs with what if this side won or that side won, what if there was a split that was different, what if there wasn't a split, what if it would remain unified, stuff like that. And you could meet historical figures too, if you want to. I guess if you want to mix in more of the fantastical, you could meet Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer.
Hey.
Yes.
So
That's such a good point. Oh man, actually, the Wild West hunting supernatural creatures is so good because like the lone gunslinger type vibe for a character, and you've got, especially going to the west, you're losing direct control with law enforcement. But there's also the fun part of the steampunk in the city and having the nitty gritty going on there in the underground. You got the, especially if you lean into modern day or the current day was having, I think it was Irish and German, especially immigrants coming in, if I remember right. Definitely Irish. A lot of that stuff you could play with that would be, as an Irish boy, I think would be hilarious.
What's not potatoes farming it out there,
Yes.
Hey, I am proud of my that part of my potato heritage.
Yes.
Taters is tasty.
It's true.
But you can do a lot of stuff like that. You can do, and you can remember geographically, things wouldn't be the same. So you could make it, let me see, if you got Civil War, Fort Smith, Arkansas, and kind of that vertical line of states, maybe Kansas, not so much. I'd have to look at the actual, because some were territories and some were states. But
right.
Arkansas, Fort Smith was called the Gateway to the West, and it's right there in the middle of the country. It's a great place for starting out your adventures or doing stuff like that. I say that as someone who doesn't live far from there. U.S. Marshals were headquartered around that area. I don't know for sure at that time if they were, but there was a fort there at that time. So you can always play that up.
And it would be bounties. I mean, it's easy. What do I want to say? Non-storyline campaign, too. If you just want to have bounties going on with the U.S. Marshals and everything, that's prime time for that going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that remembering political situations too, we always think about, North and South, but in the Antebellum period, it wasn't just North and South, but the continent of North America, much more of it was Mexico than is today. Right. If you were to go west into those Indian territories and keep going, if you got to California or, Nevada or New Mexico, you were in Mexico. You weren't in America. You weren't in the United States of America. Or these United States of America at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it was during that time that they kind of established the border with Canada, too, right? So that was, like, going on during that period.
Oh, yeah, they didn't... the Canadians came down... It may have been in the 1800s. They came down and burnt the White House.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I remember Kane telling us about that.
Yeah,
just to make sure.
Yep. Just remember.
Just remember.
Those nice, so sweet, sweet Canadians. Just trot it on down.
We're going to come down and burn your capital, eh? Right to the ground. No, don't worry about it. No problem at all. Just remember.
Oh, man.
Of course, things were different there too. You had, during this period, you would have had a lot of migration from Canada downward also. Mm-hmm. You had a lot of cross-migration. And we think about people moving today and that being normal. But even back then, people would move, families would move. And if one part of the family moved, usually a good part of the family moved with them.
Right.
So you could have community shift, change, and how that affects things. Right,
the Manifest Destiny especially, right? A lot of people in the East living in the city just sold everything to move west, which is could be another great campaign setting, is your family leaving the city, leaving all that behind, packing up and headed west.
Mm-hmm. And you still have, let me see, Louisiana Purchase, that's 1700s, I think. So, I'll check real quick. But if, Louisiana purchase. You would still have
1803.
1803. So it would have just happened within the lifespan of the people that you're playing,
right?
Most likely, and that would mean that you would have a lot of bilingual people. If they're doing any kind of traveling or any kind of business, they're probably at least bilingual, if not trilingual, with English, Spanish, and French, or enough. So you can play that up too. You could have... I'm not sure when the Acadian migration happened from... when the Acadians came down to become Cajuns, and the Creole was there, and there was always that difference there down in Louisiana. So 1755, so that would have already happened. So you would have your Cajuns already. And you would have both your Creole and your Cajuns. And there can be tensions there down in the swamplands if you want to. Playing into... I think during this period you had a lot of... During the previous period and this period, you had a lot of literature that really cemented itself as Americana. During the Antebellum period, you were starting to leave the... This is a colony of England type of feel, and the colonies, which were not colonies anymore, by this time are starting to feel like Americana, or like what people think about America feeling like. The antebellum houses down in the south, the industrialization, like mentioned, in the north. You have there's this whole big melting pot, and that's where the idea of the melting pot is. You've got these neighborhoods that are ethnic, but then you have this whole idea that you're becoming American. You're not doing other things like that. In fact, a lot of the immigration around that time was curtailed to ethnic groups that were not assimilating. So they had limits or prohibitions on that, and they had a lot of stuff back then. That'll be something more for the law and the lawman type of law, outlaws, and tombstones for the next one. But the idea that these laws are different, and everybody had kind of different ideas of the laws. Those funny laws about not wearing bow ties on, what was it, Sunday or something like that?
Yes.
Or nobody with a mustache can hold office or something, I don't know. Those weird things. Laws like that could come about in this time very easily and be enforced by the people there. So it's an interesting time.
Yes.
They could say only squirrels could be sheriffs, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And in all fairness, shout out to Howl of the Wild that we'll be talking about later. Doing like a Redwall Western setting.
So
like
you're playing Five
sentient
Goes
animals.
West.
Yes, yes. 100% would be awesome. I would totally play that game.
Yeah.
And it's fun because this is the start, too, if I'm remembering correctly, of the kind of mythic cowboy. And it's America's mythology, really. So having all that mythos that you could play with and tap into could be a lot of fun, especially if you're going as fantastical as having talking animals and stuff. But also I was thinking, and Adam's mentioned this several different chats, there's plenty of really cool maps and records that you can actually work from for this. And, oh man, especially looking at some of the older maps, trying to find some that were actually made in that period and then directly play off of that, because there might be some inaccuracies, and like Adam said before, things look different back then. That would be a lot of fun. And save a little GM work.
Oh, yeah.
We like that.
We like that.
Yep. So what I'm seeing is that Paul Bunyan didn't really start, that he's the guy you think of as the big folklore thing, 1882 to 1958. So after the Civil War.
A little later. Okay. Fair enough.
When was Pecos Bill?
Pecos Bill.
He's the Westerner one, right?
Yeah, I wonder if... Because I always think
he's
Howlin'
probably
Wheels too, but that was post-Civil War.
a pay us bill. Riding a tornado.
Classic.
Hey, did y'all ever watch that movie Tall Tale?
The first known stories were yes, I did. The first known stories were published in 1917. So he's actually later.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. I figured he would be during that era.
Yeah, me too.
I guess that comes from us looking back, because we can forget sometimes that Cowboy was not always a good thing. It was often an insult. So,
which is really funny.
Yeah, nowadays America's our Americans, all Americans to everybody around. Cowboys.
Yeah, it does have, shouting back to what Skrat was talking about, it is our samurai in a lot of ways, because there's a period of time there where samurai was not necessarily a good thing.
That's what I was just sitting here thinking when you said cowboy was an insult. So.
Right.
Yeah. After the Meiji era over there, which was in this time, right around this time period, you had the dissolving of the samurai order and the shogun order, and the first true, full, united thing. And
because it was what, the wandering Ronin?
Ronin was a masterless samurai.
Yeah.
And they weren't supposed to carry swords. They weren't. At first it went down to licenses, and then they just took them and said you couldn't have them. Sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, let's say I just watched a Scholargrim video dropped about that today. He was talking about.
Really?
Well, he was talking about swords and the that look like walking canes. Mm-hmm. That's why they became a thing.
Yeah,
because when they started getting rid of swords and you weren't allowed to carry them anymore.
Mm-hmm. They dropped their guards. Funny. They made them look like that.
This is great. And that's something you can play with in your world building, is the attention between, or whatever you want to do with reality versus how we have kind of glorified these things nowadays. Because like both Cowboy and the Ronin can be very glorified and seem like, the edgelord almost in a lot of ways. Or the anti-hero. I love it.
Yeah. But that makes for fun games.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to play games like this, we're final thoughts, guys. So I'm gonna make this my final thought, and then guess who's going to go first in final thoughts? Dan is.
I'll throw my wild idea in final thoughts.
Okay. So Maya, let me make sure I got it back in my head. I don't have it, but I will go with the next thought that comes to my head. When you're playing with these characters and things like that, oh, there it is. I found it. Don't be afraid to pull from media that is what we would call tropey today. Don't be afraid to pull those tropes in, because even though you, as someone who might watch them, or go back and do your research to pick up those tropes from like even the campy things from the really old westerns and such. Those are fine to pick up from and to play with, and your players might not know these things, especially nowadays since we have so many opportunities to play with people from around the world. They might not know that you wouldn't have had this type of gun in America at this time, or you would have plenty of guns in America at this time, or just the idea of having guns that ubiquitous is something that would be foreign to a lot of people who grow up in the modern time. Your average person, the family at least, had a firearm. Or some other thing. That was one of the investments you actually made, because it was a way to provide food as well as protection. So all of those things are quite interesting to play with during this time period. So that's one of my things to go for.
That's great. You were very kind by going with international, and I'm just thinking, those Gen Zers and Gen Alpha, they don't know any of that.
Is that the thing now? Alpha is the next thing?
As far as I've heard, yeah. I think that's my kids.
They may think they're
love
alpha. I don't know.
Yeah. God help us all. Man, you kind of twisted my final thought now. But it still all fits together because I'm thinking, so my final thought is take this, you can take, and we kind of talked about this last time we did Showdown at High June. The Western and the tropes in there, storytelling wise, you can put into any setting that has the wild frontier. So when I was researching this, I got really distracted with the naval stuff going on. Actually, it's really fascinating.
You can have pirates.
Right, exactly. And back then they would have livestock on the ship, and you're dealing with water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. So you can deal with drought, if you will. You're running out, you're in a wild place. It could be really fascinating, especially getting to the Monroe Doctrine time. The British Royal Navy was really enforcing that due to all the international issues there. So there's a lot to play with there. And you could have a lot of the Western things. And then as Adam was talking, I started thinking Fallout too. Fallout, you can do a Western vibe in a Fallout type setting and do that same thing rather than doing the 1950s, have kept up the 1850s or something like that. Could be really fun. Taking those Western tropes and just putting those story tropes into different settings. They're just great. They're great storytelling devices to use. So,
and Fallout New Vegas very much feels like a Western in the Fallout universe. So,
yep.
You even get cowboys versus aliens type of thing in that. So
yes. Oh man, it's good.
All right. What about you, Skrat?
Oh,
You
I got
Sheriff.
a couple. Let's see. Actually, one's just a funny story, and I may have told this one last time.
I'll still laugh.
Yeah, years and years ago, it was one of my first jobs I had, corporate ones. We had this guy, not from around here. His name was Godum, and the way he spelled his name, it looked like Gotham, so we all called him Gotham City. But he said, we were talking to him one day, and he said he honestly thought coming over here would be like the old Wild West movies he watched. He thought everybody was going to have cowboy hats and guns and just shooting each other. He honestly thought that's what it was going to be. And I asked him if he was disappointed, and he said a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hollywood ruins everything.
Yeah. He honestly thought we were over here just, cowboying it up. But anyway, my
That's
actual
so cool.
final thought.
Aw, shucks.
That's not the
Actual-
first person that's told me that type of story. I'm like, this is so funny.
I couldn't believe he actually thought that.
Right.
Because he was a smart guy. It's like,
No, I should have went to Texas.
yeah.
Or
A
Oklahoma.
little closer.
Right? Yeah. You wonder what we're thinking about other countries we haven't been to, too.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, I was gonna say here, the thing I like about this kind of setup for a game, we had touched on this a good bit in one of our fantasy chats when we were talking about soft magic and hard magic. How soft magic is much more explorative. There's things to discover. It's mystery and all that. And I feel like you get a good bit of that in this kind of setting because. Like, you guys touched on it, too, a few times during this chat. Like, the technology is new, and it's unpredictable. Like, you're discovering stuff, and you may not know how it works or why it works. And there's a lot of land to go discover, things you haven't seen. So I feel like you get a lot of that soft magic goodiness, especially if you start throwing in some fantasy elements in your Western world. Because you got the familiarity of 6 shooters and cowboys. You're like, okay, I am familiar with this world, but still at the same time everything is new. It needs to be explored, and especially if you start throwing in steampunk things, you can really start getting some weird machinery you might recognize, but technically it's like okay, this wouldn't really actually work, but this is cool. I can go with it.
Steampunk locomotive mix!
yes. Jacob would be all over that. I do think too of Back to the Future 3 when he has that machine that makes the ice cubes.
Yep.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have really had to do all that, but it was a fun set piece.
It was great. Some set designers had a whole lot of fun.
They did. That's about it, though. Just
Yeah, that's great. That's really great point. Because I mean, especially in a game, tech and magic. Not to get everyone mad, but they're kind of the same thing from a game mechanic standpoint.
They very, very much can be.
Yeah. So the soft tech that's a really good point.
And I like the idea of. I talked about the one shot earlier with the natives having actual magic. I like the idea of that being much more rare, but much more reliable. And then you have all these steampunk engineers with all kinds of machinery you have access to, but it's not the most reliable. It can backfire on you.
Which that does kind of invert the usual thing that's done with magic too.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's fun. And it's interesting. It's an interesting point because you can always have it where the softness of the technology is not necessarily even real. And by that I mean it's simply the ignorance of those around them that makes it seem magic.
Mm.
So, if you
know what? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you don't know, we don't know how cell phones literally work, but we know that a general idea of how they work. But they're still practically magic in the way we don't understand them.
It's technically a pencil is magic. Like it takes a lot to put that together.
Is it John Henry? He was the one that was fighting the machine, right?
Yeah,
that sounds right.
He was driving the post, trying to drive it faster than the machine. He kept beating it until one time it beat it. He tied with the machine, but he split the boulder, where the machine didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
But he died.
We'll get into the whole psychology and like stuff behind those. We'll never.
We are
that concept, but it's all of the steampunk guys versus the magic people.
Yeah.
Just like, no, we can do better than magic. Magic people are just like,
they're good magic.
I love it.
All right, we are a little past our time, gentlemen.
Oh no.
So, we won't mention last month where we tried to make sure we were on time and we're not successful. We definitely won't mention that.
No,
even though it was just me and Skrat.
It was perfect last time.
I don't remember it happening. So.
Yeah, Dan doesn't remember that happening. Doesn't remember being here for that, I should rephrase.
Yeah.
So, but we hope that you were here. And we hope you were here this time and enjoying yourself. The comment for this time is going to be Sheriff Squirrel.
I love it.
Ayo.
So cute, I want to pinch him.
So, that is the thing for this time. We hope you enjoyed. It has been myself, Adam, with the Planar Crossroads and the Gentle Voice Ministries. It has been Dan with Avenue Studios. And it has been Skrat with the Squirrel Plays. All of them found on YouTube. Do remember that we shouted out Hack the Dungeon if you want to check them out. And we hope to see you next time. As always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Later.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
All right.
I didn't get my hand up in time.
There it is.
All right. I will stop and check this one.